Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of eCoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's show, I have with me a very special guest, Darren Rogers. Darren is the founder and CEO of SEO Rocket, a full-service digital marketing and web development agency headquartered in Kernersville, North Carolina. For more than 20 years, he's dedicated his professional life to helping clients be more successful with their digital marketing. His client portfolio runs the digital marketing services gamut from local SEO for local retailers and service industry businesses with one or more locations to large brands that require excellence in e-commerce SEO. Away from the office, Darren is always interested in learning something new. His top interests are his eclectic taste in music, books, and film. Other passions include following his favorite NFL team, the Carolina Panthers, and classic muscle cars. If you feed him great Mexican food, he'll give you the secret formula to ranking #1 on Google. Darren, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, no problem. Hey, how would your high school teachers describe you as a student?
Oh, very detailed. I took a lot of pride in really understanding subject matter. I would say I have a natural sense for curiosity. My interests go in a lot of different directions. I find something I'm interested in, and then I dive into it. I'm pretty tenacious about it. I get into the details. So.
Oh, right on. What subjects did you what subjects did you enjoy most then?
Well, I would say history. I've always been really interested in that as far as subject matter goes. That probably was by far my favorite.
Yeah. Did it surprise you to learn about the internet and get an interest in digital marketing? Like,
completely.
I mean, like, for instance, not to date us, but like what we're doing now did not exist when I was in high school.
You went exactly where I was going to start with, because it didn't exist. So I had no idea there would be such an opportunity. And I just fortunately migrated step by step into a position where I had an opportunity early on. Before, if you knew anything about the internet, doors would open for you. And so, but a lot of the challenge was you had to have the initiative to be self-taught. So you had to dig into forums and books that were available on technology, teach yourself a lot of things, but be willing to ask a lot of questions and experiment, and then teach other people.
So what inspired you then? Like, what was there a project or a problem that, like, what went from, your university degree? I know you got a bachelor's in science to, to launching, to getting involved in digital marketing.
Well, I think it started with a genuine interest in seeing that, technology was a great career choice to get into. I knew a little bit about programming, took some courses in that.
Sure.
I had some friends that were sort of into technical, nerdy stuff that I was buddies with, and I glommed onto it, got fascinated with the internet, saw that there were some opportunities, started saying, hey, I think I'll teach myself how to build websites. This was back when we were hand coding things by editors, learning how to work with servers, all of which greatly helped set a foundation for promoting sites and things like that. So I got an opportunity with a startup agency to become one of their first employees, building websites for their clients and things. And then they came to me and early on and said, hey, we've heard about this thing called SEO that a lot of people are interested in. Why don't you look into it and see what it's all about? Is there something there? And so I dug into it, and I said, man, it was like a door to a whole new world opened for me. And I saw opportunity all over it. So I got really excited, dove in to that subject matter. I had early successes with it, which was very encouraging by applying the things I was learning. And for the clients we were working with, that was exciting for them. So it was a great Wild West opportunity day. It was real exciting. I was doing this just before Google entered the SEO arena. So, then, so it was organic. And then a little bit after that, paid search came along. I mean, I don't know if anyone remembers Ink2Me and Overture. I mean, that's how
I remember those. Yeah.
I was getting into that stuff, But anyway, so that sort of is how I started and migrated into this,
right
and helped create a department at the agency. And then from there, started SEO Rocket afterwards. I said, hey, I can help a lot of people with this stuff that I'm learning. And it was exciting, and show other people. And I had a great talent pool of folks to bring aboard. So it's been a great experience. It's been a great career. And, and I'm just, fortunate to have an opportunity to be here with you and share some things.
Yeah. Google Analytics 4 has had some, it's gotten a bad rap. There's a lot of people that don't like it, are frustrated with the direction Google has gone. It's almost like they've totally reinvented the wheel, and everybody's starting at kindergarten again, as far as Google Analytics goes. I myself have put off even learning about it because I'm just like, forget it. I'm going to use Matomo. But what do you think about this Google Analytics version?
Okay, well, I think that it was necessary. I think GA4 represents Google's need to modernize analytics and address privacy-driven changes to industry standards that universal analytics, which commonly I refer to it sometimes as UA or GA3 a lot. It just can't keep up with. For example, you're looking at things such as the General Data Protection Regulations, the GDPR in Europe, and the CCPA from California. We're in an era where there's an ever increasing concern about privacy. And so data collection practices that used to be okay are now considered unethical, and in some cases illegal. But I get skepticism. I mean, to be fair, we were a bit skeptical when we first got to looking at GA4 back when it was first announced. And our impression of it is, what is this? This is something different. It seemed rather strange to us, and honestly looked incomplete when you're used to GA3. So moving to GA4, that may seem rushed to some people, since it's still in beta and it's under rapid development. And I think those folks are correct to recognize it may be a little too early for them to completely migrate away from GA3 right now.
Do you think that Google was premature? Like, they made the deadline for July of next year. Do you think they were premature in doing that and pushing the rollout?
Well, I think for most people that will be all right. I think, they're developing things at a really torrid pace, and there's a lot that's come out. I think for most use cases and most of our clients, I think the capabilities are already there to do what needs to be done. Now, the challenge is it's still changing and it's under development. So, I mean, in all honesty, when we did initial installations for clients a few years ago, we have to go back and revisit them because there's new configurations that have come out since then that we're like, okay, now we have to go revisit and make sure we, dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. But I think when you look at all the advantages and things that it offers, I mean, there's just a lot more upside to using.
Yeah. What are some of those things, if you could share from your experience that you like about it over GA3?
Well, let's see. I think
this is coming from someone who, I mean, I haven't even dug into GA4 yet. I haven't even watched a tutorial video. I haven't even taken a course. I've been procrastinating on it big time because I've just read so many bad things about it. I'm like, do I really? But it's Google. You got to learn how to do it. But is the reporting more accurate? Are there certain features that are there certain features that we're missing from GA3? They're universal analytics, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think it's the new approach. I mean, I basically would list them out in order of, I think, first of all, it's customer centric in its measurement. So you're measuring what your users are doing across devices. And I think that was something that's needed in this era. And I think you have great things like customer lifecycle reporting and a lot more control with data controls, like, of course, back to privacy. You've got automatically baked in or IP anonymization. If needed, you can disable things like Google Signals data, if that's going to be an issue. You have more control over what data you're collecting, and you can even delete data if you need to.
Yeah.
It comes with I think a lot of people are excited that you can free export data into BigQuery now, instead of having to be like a enterprise GA360
go up to
plan.
that. Which is expensive.
That's quite expensive. I think having that opportunity is exciting to a lot of people. I think they've made it easier to set up events and conversion tracking. That's a big deal.
Okay.
And they've simplified a lot of things, subdomain, cross-domain tracking.
Because that was always difficult in Universal Analytics, subdomain, cross-domain tracking. And even
I can't tell you the number the number of accounts we've come into investigating their analytics, and they weren't tracking across domains or, and things like that. And we're like, wait a minute, your historical data is all screwy. So now that's subdomain tracking is already in place. So, and they've made cross-domain tracking easy. So is
it still necessary to use GTM, Google Tag Manager, to set up events for tracking in GA4?
No,
or has that been simplified?
It's greatly simplified. If you use Tag Manager, because they have a configuration tag template ready for you to go with. So I think you would be smart to use Tag Manager.
Okay.
For configuring installation and configuring events and things like that. Yeah.
But I guess you could use that with Universal Analytics. But I guess the question I'm asking is, have they made it easier? I guess they have then, eh?
Yeah. I mean, in my view, I think, I think it's easier. And there's a lot of other cool things. I mean, you really touch on, the machine learning capabilities that come with this.
Oh, gosh. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, just basically, you get to tap into Google's AI to look for, patterns in your data, and it can help you, and it can help you with predictive modeling and things like that.
Yeah.
So
because sometimes in Universal Analytics, Google would do data sampling. That was one of the selling points of Matomo. Was there, like, if you want to really get a real 100% accurate view of your traffic, that's not just based on data sampling like Google does. Like an actual visitor, 100% accurate, realistic idea of your traffic. That's how was one of their selling features. But it seems like, has that changed in GA4? Do you know?
No, I mean, I think they just it's more blended with with they've got data gap filling capabilities and things like that. So I think it's just, I think it's improved. I think everything is.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, back in the day when you and I first started doing this, we didn't have to worry about mobile phones and tablets and cross-device tracking. We didn't have to worry about responsive websites, for Pete's sake. I remember the 960 grid. Like, nobody builds 960 grid sites anymore. If anything, they're using the 1200 or the 1440. Or some aren't even using grids at all, although I still think you should use grids, but that's my opinion. But
you're right. We're in a mobile first world.
And a mobile first world.
And Google's all in on that. I think this is one of the things that this reflects. I think older versions of analytics were from an era of desktop and cookie tracking, which is way precedes, concerns about privacy and things. I think it was just, like I said, a wild west, and people crossed the line with that, and there's been pushback. Hence, we have this legislation and things. I think this is a response to those needs. Yeah.
What about this question? You can plead the fifth if you want, and we can edit this out. But, like, in regards to setting up tracking IDs, I know that you can set up tracking IDs in GA3 or Universal Analytics, whatever. And you can do the same thing in Google Analytics 4. But has that improved at all from what you've seen in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, yeah, I think so. I think the fact that
Okay.
it depends on how you're doing your tracking and things like that. But yes, I think if you like
Yeah.
have logins and things, you have user IDs, you have things like that, that the whole transition, as I see it with GA4, is that it's meant to help you track your users across different platforms and interactions and things like that. So they've made all of that involves much better.
Yeah. It's amazing because it's amazing how, like, I don't even, for instance, like if I'm on my phone, how are they going to, there must be the ability to set up a tracking ID so they can know if I switch from my phone to their website. If I switch from looking at the website on my phone, then switching to my computer to finish the transaction. Well, and then them doing attribution to be able to track that, because that was one of the limitations or frustrations, I would say, with Universal Analytics, correct?
Right. Yeah. The session-based tracking, it would reset or change on different things. So now it's more of an event model. It's with, like I said, customer-centric, the user. What's the user doing? Google's tracking all that. You get a number and basically they can track it to you as opposed to, things about sessions and hits.
Sessions and hits. Have you had any experience in regards to integrating that with a CRM so that you can get even further?
I'm sure that's coming. I've got clients that have expressed interest in that, but for most of ours, not yet.
Yeah. Not yet. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I know that the CRM can also tell you data and matching the IP address up with the tracking ID, and that's been on my even that's going been on my wish list. Yeah, absolutely.
With clients that have had CRM systems that have operated in one silo and then analytics in another.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, how do we bridge these worlds? And now, again, coming back to BigQuery is a possible solution for that.
Yeah. We were, when I was at the dealership, there were some challenges with phone tracking.
All right.
There's a company out there. I won't say their name because I don't need to, but they're a rather large company for phone tracking, and they're in different verticals. And so they had one specific iteration of their business for car dealers. And we would set up we had all our tracking numbers, right? And they were dynamic. Like for Google ads, they would change all the time or whatever. And we had I had a phone number for Google My Business, and I had a phone number for various different marketing campaigns. But the point I'm trying to make is when someone would call in, we got it to the point where the salesperson would enter a PIN code, and it would automatically then transfer the caller to the salesperson in the CRM, and they would take ownership of that lead. And if they had called in before, if they were already in the CRM, it would match up their phone number with the record and automatically transfer that record to them, that client record or prospect record. Like if they were say they had bought a car from the dealership 5 years ago, but they were what we call an orphan customer. So I can really see the point I'm trying to make is that, and then if they weren't, and if nobody claimed them, they went to a user called Phone Bucket that was in there, that all the leads would get assigned to a phone bucket for unclaimed leads. But I can really see how with GA4 and phone tracking and your CRM, those three coming together to be able to, and I don't know if that's like scary to people that we as marketers have the ability to do that. But I mean, our best way to get an ROI for our clients and business owners is to have as much data as possible. So,
well, I think we have to reassure people too that their personal identifiable information, we don't have access to that. Yeah. I think that's where most people feel like privacy concerns cross the line, or it's going to be shared or used with other parties that they're not comfortable with, that they didn't authorize. I mean, that's really the crux of that concern, I think.
Yeah. Are the privacy laws in the States catching up with the GDPR?
Well, you look at what California has done, and I think, that's an example here in the States where we can't just say, well, if you're not dealing with international marketing, you don't have to worry about it. No, I think unless models like this are adopted and people pay attention to it, there's going to be a lot of pressure for it to be, for legislation to address it and force marketers to take these kind of actions. I think in this way, Google's sort of taking the lead in offering a solution to marketers heading toward this cookieless, more privacy-centric world. Yeah. And I think that's why GA4's time is necessary. So sort of this harkens back to what you had asked earlier. Are they moving too quickly? And it's like, no, I would say, I would say no. I think, well, no, I wouldn't say that either, because I think that's the challenge. It's a little bit of give us a chance to get used to it. But if you're, GA3, is just not going to keep up. It doesn't have the capability to protect people like that. So they're forcing us to get away from that. So I understand where they're coming from with that. Yeah. The deadline, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that deadline is July 2023. And if people wanted to have historical year-over-year data, they would have had to have set up GA4 by 2023. And if they haven't already, they're not going to have historical data to year-over-year comparisons. So what do you advise, business owners what do you advise to website owners who don't want to migrate to Google Analytics for?
Well, there's a number of options that are available to people who want to save their historical data. Okay. In fact, here's what I would recommend, and I pulled this together. You do want to consider backing up your historical data, and what I would recommend, there's a Search Engine Journal published a really nice article titled Getting Ready for GA4, Saving Your Historical Data. And that walks through the currently available options for how to go about it. So you can decide which one makes the most sense for you and your situation. And it includes tips on how to visualize that data with Data Studio. And I think one of the things they point out that's really important to remember is that GA3's data is a completely different data model. So you're not going to be able to migrate that to GA4. No. And when you're trying to compare the two, that's going to be really like trying to compare apples to oranges. Okay. So you need to have that expectation. Yeah, it's not going to match. So in other words, people should get GA4 set up as soon as possible, or think about using it, or think about using a different platform. Yeah, I think you hit on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what your thoughts on this. I don't think. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I'll shut up.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just wanting to add to that and say, install GA4 ASAP so that you have this data and you're starting to feed the AI information right now. Even if you think you're not going to use GA4, I really think people would do well to install it and have that data. I agree. Because they may find their other option to be a bust. And so it's better to have the data and not need it than wish you had. Yeah. So start collecting that data. Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some of the first steps that you take your clients through in the migrations you've done or the setup you've done of GA4? Do you have a specific generality, for instance, you can share of a project you worked on?
Well, the first thing, of course, is installing GA4. Start tracking things in parallel. Yeah. And back up your data. Okay. And I think let's see what I would do. Is the best way to fire the script still with Google Tag Manager? Yes. Yeah. Okay. I definitely. I know there's multiple ways to install it, but I've always gone that route. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Tag Manager, and I think that you want to Also have a migration plan, have procedures ready. I think you do want to, if I were to take on a new client right now, I definitely want to start with auditing their GA3. I want to look at their events, goals, funnels, filters, customization, how their e-commerce is set up, all that stuff. So I'm mapping out what they've had, but I would then have a conversation with stakeholders. I think this is a great opportunity to do some spring cleaning, find out what reports they really, really need, because GA4 may not offer you the reports you're used to, in the earlier versions of analytics. Prioritize what information is really helping drive the business. Nice to know information that could be added later on. So look at mapping your events, what events were being tracked in GA3. And also what goals were you tracking? So you can decide what you really need to set up for conversion events, check things like filters, things like that. I think a plan should include these things and more.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of having a development environment and for testing things out. So make sure that you're being careful to exclude that data that's not going to get into your production data, and use and things like that, and debug while you're making changes.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I used to set up multiple different views in Universal Analytics. This was according to, I can't remember his name, but he's the gentleman who runs optimizesmart.com. And he talked about how you should set up 10 different views. One being a raw data view, another being a test view, another being your target market view. Even setting up a unique view for Google ads, a unique view for Facebook ads, a unique view for organic social, a unique view for SEO, and so on and so forth. There was about 10 to 12 of them, and I would set them all up. And to be frank with you, a full Google Analytics setup was like, it's very sophisticated. It's there's a lot to it in regards to. So with views going away now, how can what's the setup case since views have disappeared in that regard for replacing in GA4?
Well, I mean, right now you can have multiple properties and data streams and things like that.
These data streams the replacement for views?
No, I don't know that you need necessarily. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily. I mean, you may set up different properties or something like that and treat it like that. But I just want to have an aside. Somebody that's supposedly in the know officially with Google, they'd hinted that views could be coming back, but I don't know that it's really needed. I'm just putting that out there as a rumor. And there's been nothing since said about it. So take that with a grain of salt. Believe it when you see it. But I don't know that you really will need to have views. You can have different properties and things like that.
Interesting.
So
sorry, my apologies.
No, that's fine.
There was a question that I had and I can't remember what it was. So my apologies that we were talking about. Oh, yes, here it is. With the migration to GA4 and the setup of GA4, do you think it's important to have more than one data source? For instance, instead of just if the budget allows for clients, I know what I think, but I want to know what your thoughts are. I'm setting up a secondary analytics platform such as Matomo or Piwik or whatever there may be. What are your thoughts on that? Again, budget not being a issue.
Well, I would be skeptical. I mean, my personal view on it is I think your needs probably, I'm not familiar with those other.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, no problem.
Analytics tools you're talking about. So I can't really say what they bring to the table that analytics couldn't do for you through some combination of things. So I would never advise somebody something that clearly didn't specifically do something that they couldn't achieve with what they already had with something free like Analytics 4. I know there's been a lot of tests. I think Data Driven did a great, kind of going off on a tangent here a little bit, but Data Driven U did a great article comparing different analytics tools. So I think they compared like 42 different analytics tools. They had a great article and even a video off of that. And they looked at hosted solutions, and when it comes to free and low cost, I mean, we've evaluated some ourselves. Yeah. And frankly, spoiler alert, sorry, Jeff Sauer.
Yeah. Good. And he just coming on the show in November. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I've learned a lot from him. I think he's great.
Me too.
And I think following him and Chris Decidin and others is a great way to keep current. But to keep me back on track a little bit on the topic, I think that analytics, ultimately is still the gold standard.
Yeah, and you're talking about how he did the comparison of the
they did it. Yeah, they did a deep dive. They like compared. I think I'm right. It was like 42 different options. What was the outcome, or should we just point people to the? Well, that was the spoiler. Yeah, go check it out. It's on Data Driven You. They wrote it on. They have an article about it.
Do you remember the name of the article? I'm trying to find it right now.
Yes, let me check. I made some notes because I did want to point that out.
Yeah,
because I know there's been people who are like, I'll just go to another analytics solution if I've got. But that's where my view on it is even if you do think so, save your data, put your GA4 in place and get that data. Yeah, I have it. Just give me a moment. I'll locate it for you.
Hey, no problem.
Yes. Oh, here it is. Let's see. Well, you know what? You may just have to go to Data Driven You and search for it.
Hey,
I don't actually seem to have the title.
Yeah, it's okay. Article. We'll find it and put it in the show notes. That would be a great. I'm glad you shared that, because now I can grill Jeff on it.
They're an impressive operation.
What do you think are the key Google Analytics 4 metrics every digital marketer needs to use to better understand user behavior?
Okay. So for user behavior, they have a lot of reports and capabilities that help you, look at the event. It's event driven, right? But I would say I would start, I would probably start in the user acquisition report, looking at things like engaged sessions and engagement rate, engaged sessions per user, average engagement time, all that stuff. That obviously speaks to that, conversions, revenue. But you also have an engagement overview report, which gives you stats on, retention data, you'll find that in there, like user activity over time snapshot or the stickiness snapshot. But you've got tons of stuff, huh?
Bounce rate was always something that was a misleading metric.
Yes.
Have they solved that issue in GA4?
Yeah, I think when you look at engagement, that's more useful than looking at bounce rate. And you know what? And spoiler alert on this too. Rumor is that could be coming back. I was personally, yeah. And I can't tell you
it's such a misleading. It's such a misleading metric. As you know, someone could be on your page just to look at the phone number and they're gone. And it's like, did the goal get achieved? Not the bounce rate.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. I can't tell you the number of times I've had that exact conversation with clients that hear about bounce rate and they come to you and they say,
"What's my bounce rate?" It's such a big deal. It's like, it's not even a big deal. Let's talk about what your conversions are, your events and your conversions are, and your revenue. Forget about the bounce rate.
But are you making money? Rate? Right. Yeah. We would have that conversation.
So on the bottom low of priorities, it's mind-boggling. It's like,
it doesn't particularly give you that in itself. Doesn't particularly give you insights. I get it. People want to see that you're engaging with the content. So, but like you said, accomplishing their goal. If they're just coming there to figure out how to contact you and get that information and bail, that was a successful accomplishment.
Especially if you're using phone tracking.
Yeah. Right.
So
that's why I think these event tracking, engagement information, that's why I think this is a necessary transition to GA4, looking at things that are more focused on what's happening with the user and what they're accomplishing.
Is there any feature that's missing from GA4 that is on your wish list?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Like you've been in the thing of, man, I wish I had this.
Well, they developed so quickly. Who knows? They may have put it in place while we're having this interview. No, I would say, I was curious. I'm always curious about things like page speed and things like that. But that was a bit of an iffy thing to look at analytics to provide as far as accuracy on, speed reports and things like that. So, but that was kind of a bells and whistles thing. I don't think it's really missing. I think the core stuff that I really care about is there, and they've added so much new cool stuff like lifetime value data and stuff that, it's obviously a net win.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You just got me thinking about things like being able to connect the data together with the accounting software to be able to see what the lifetime value. Yeah. But what about for instance, a lot of people use Hotjar or Get Clicky to segment to work in conjunction with. There's another word I'm looking for engagement tracking. I mean, do you think that's a feature that should be in whether it be GA4 or an all-in-one? I wonder if I've never looked at closely enough at GA360 to see. I imagine GA360 probably has for the price that they're charging. It's got to serve you. It should serve you dinner, for Pete's sake, for the amount of money they're charging for GA360. Right. So, right. Yeah, I think we can only ask of them so much for a free product.
Yeah, I mean, they put a lot of resources into it because it feeds, their ads and things like that.
We know they're using the data.
Yeah. Do
you think that Google ad campaign, people who say, well, they don't want to use GA4, but my biggest concern with that has been, well, how the heck are you going to measure conversions? And because when I was at the dealership, I set up a dedicated view just for Google ads with specific goals that were only for Google ads. I didn't care. There were other goals that, when I had my target market view, which was, there was filters on that for just the area like Canada where I'm from. And I didn't want to include US traffic or other traffic. I just wanted the target market view, what my target market was. But there were certain goals in there that were like all of the goals. There were certain goals. Then there were certain goals that were relevant to Google ads that I only wanted in Google ads. And I only wanted to use to measure conversions for that particular view. And I have to collect my thoughts here for a second. I can't even, just a second. So with what I was trying to say is, I had that particular view set up for Google ads. And if someone tries to, migrate away from Google ads or from GA4 or Google Analytics, or whatever wants to use Matomo or whatever the case may be, it's how are you going to properly run Google ads? I just don't see how it's possible. They've got you excuse me, but for the French, but they've got you by the short and curlies, no matter what,
Right. Well, I would say that that's a great point that you brought up there. I really think if you're using any of Google's advertising products, you pretty much need to stay with Google Analytics.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you could set up a secondary, if it's in the budget for one of those alternatives to Google Analytics if you wanted to. There's several out there. I know I've mentioned Matomo and Pivot Pro, but I think when people get I've never even looked at Adobe Analytics, and I'm an analytics geek. I'm a marketing geek, period. But I've never looked at Adobe Analytics or Mixpanel or Woopra or for Pete's sake, Segment. Twilio Segment. I don't even know what it's all about. And it's definitely data is going to start to become more and more and more and more important. Would you say, if I could go back in my career, Darren, and I don't know if you would agree, but I would have learned about analytics first and front end marketing second, because you can't really know if something's working or not unless you know what the data is saying.
I agree. I probably have had very similar thoughts in the past too, because that's one of the first things when we're taking on a client or working on something, we look at making sure are the measurables in place. How do you know if anything's working if you don't have those in place and it's not accurate? Absolutely. And so that's usually one of the biggest problems is they're either not measuring or we go in and find it's not the data is not reliable.
Yeah. And then it's not
so that's our starting point.
Yeah. And that opens up a whole conversation I've found because it's not measuring and it's not set up because they don't even know what their funnel is.
Right. Well, that happens because in some cases, people are like, I just want more traffic. I don't care what happens next kind of attitude.
No, it's like, well, do you care about money?
It's like, so it's, I just want visibility or traffic. It's like, well, we really need to think beyond that point.
Yeah,
in fact, I tend to work from the end result back. I'm like, are we measuring and making sure what we're doing is going to work before we just start investing in bringing people in?
Yeah. My friend, I had those same challenges at the dealership. The business owner, all he cared, all he wanted, my quote unquote boss, all he wanted was leads, Yeah. It wasn't until I knew the traffic was coming and he called me in his office. He said, Matt, what you're doing isn't working. I said, well, why? Well, what makes you say that? Well, because we're not selling any cars. And yet I knew what I was doing was working. And I knew the reason it wasn't selling any cars was nothing to do with me and everything to do with the sales department because they weren't like,
you can bring them in.
Leads. I was a super admin user on the CRM. I knew exactly what was going on in the entire business. No one could bullshit me in that regard. So, I quickly had to set up analytics and set up I set up key pages for traffic views, segmentation between new and used inventory, so that we could see the quality of traffic that was coming to the site on new and used inventory on those specific pages. How many people were on all the new inventory, and then segmented it down on the model level and on the vehicle type model, and then using those key metrics of time on site, and then how many goals were achieved, how many leads did we get? How many conversions happened in Google Analytics, and does that data match up with the CRM of how many leads we got, and so on and so forth. And so, and the point I'm trying to make is that I eventually proved that what I was doing was working, and it was like in your face. Don't tell me it's not working because look what's happening here, and we compare year over year data, and it's like, so the point I'm trying, it's so important, isn't it? Like people say, well, I just want traffic. Well, that's fine. But what the hell is the traffic doing? What is analytics is the foundation to be able to tell you how besides your accounting software of telling you how much money you're making, to be able to tell you how your business is performing and how your marketing is performing.
And to be fair, some people may not realize that we have the ability to see that kind of information. They may just assume if we just bring in enough people, great things will happen. Yeah. Okay. But we have the ability to look deeper in and be a little more methodical about it. And actually, one of the first conversations we always have with someone is, what is your business objectives? What do you want this site to do to contribute to growing your business? And then how do we measure that and work the problem backward?
Yeah.
And say, okay,
that's how you build your website.
It's like, and then like light bulbs start going off. Like, oh, I see. There's a methodology here. For this. And
exactly. That's the difference between a professional and a novice.
Well, thanks. I think
for sure.
I think a lot of people look sometimes as SEO is about rankings and traffic. And but that's only part of the story. I look at it as more holistic.
Yeah. Me too.
Grow the business with it, or why invest in it if you're, it's not,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, it's been an absolute pleasure, Darren. It's amazing how fast time flies by. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. How can our users get in touch with you online if they choose to do so?
Well, thank you, Matt. This has been a lot of fun for me. And I really hope that, everyone had a chance to learn something from this. And I would encourage anyone, that wants to reach out to me, go to our site, SEOrocket.com. You can reach me there. If you need any help with this stuff, GA4 in particular can be daunting. And, we love to help people. Yeah. But I think it's a necessity going into the era we're in.
I agree with you. 100%. Yeah. Are you on LinkedIn as well?
Yes, I am.
Oh, right
so
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've got the social media profiles and things like that. But I just say, if you want to reach out to me for help, the website is the way to go.
Is it okay?
SEOrocket.com.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. And if people want, but if people want to connect with you on LinkedIn, they can do so.
Yeah.
Fine.
Everybody's welcome to. Sure. Absolutely.
Sure. Right on. We'll make sure to put your profile link in the show notes as well. Hey, once again,
thank you, man.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Right on. Me as well.